Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's Tuesday afternoon, and that means that Joe Nice and I are going to go live today with a discussion. Today we are talking about the theory of change by Kurt Lewin and the Karens of the world. We're going to talk about how Karens are created and what that means, how this sort of trope is being utilized, and yeah, much more. I have lots of notes prepared, so hopefully Joe joins us soon, and we can get started. Hello, everyone. I'm just adding Joe. Just adding Joe here.
Catherine, hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
Catherine, Miss Wells, I've never been better. I've never been better.
Amazing.
I am, to borrow a Spanish phrase, en fuego. To borrow a French phrase, en
Ooh,
feu. I am on fire. I'm feeling excellent today. I've had a wonderful workout. The salad was awesome. The avocado was ripe, and it didn't disintegrate into weird guacamole slime, so I'm feeling really good today. How about yourself?
that's amazing.
Yeah, it certainly
Yeah,
is.
I'm doing well. Yeah,
Awesome.
things are good.
That's very good. I
Just, yeah.
And you know what? I'm gonna innovate here. I got a fancy new tripod thing with a ring light, so I'm glowing a little bit more than usual. And this shine isn't just shea
Amazing.
butter and a vegan diet and staying hydrated with a piece of lemon in the water. This ring light that makes me a bit more fancy than I might already seem to be. So I'm feeling good. Out to Chelsea in the chat. We see you.
Very cool.
Yes, ma'am. How about
Yes.
your stuff? Everything's good? Weather's good in Toronto?
Think weather is rainy today, but it's
Mm-hmm.
good. We needed it, so I'm
Understood.
happy about it. The
That's
dog
good.
doesn't like the rain, but
No, no, no,
I
no.
do.
Otis. Well, we know that. We know that. We know Otis doesn't like the rain at all. Not a dog that big either.
Exactly.
Good Lord. Oof. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but I just got in on the last couple of seconds. We're talking Karens today. We've
We're
had
talking
several.
Karens.
We are talking Karens, and you and I, obviously, we're both academic, or at least one of us is. That might be you more than me, but we both like our books. We both like our degrees, and we're trying to use the theory of behavioral change called Kurt Lewin's theory of change. And what we're going to do is attempt to apply Kurt Lewin's theory of change to dismantling Karens.
Heck yeah, let's
That's
do it.
that's the whole idea. And we've got and I'm not even keeping time because I'm not, but we've got about 55 minutes left. I don't know if we can get all of this in 1 hour, but we'll do our best. And if not, then
Yeah.
we might have to do a part two if at all possible. But this is a discussion that absolutely needs to be had, and we're going to start off this because, Catherine, I think obviously when you talk about Karens, Karens are rooted in racism. So I think there's a lot of people out there that understand, hey, you know what? Black lives matter. There's a fight for freedom, humanity, equality, survival. But what is racism? What is it? I know it. There's to borrow a phrase, there's an old Supreme Court judge named Potter Stewart. And Potter Stewart once said, with a discussion about pornography, he said, I don't know what pornography is, but I know it when I see it. And
Mm.
and I think a lot of people have that sort of understanding about racism. It's like, I don't know exactly what it is, but I know it when I
Yes.
see it. I know it when I see it, but I can't
Yes.
really. There's dictionaries and encyclopedias here, but what is it? So, what exactly is it? Racism really is a belief that, quite honestly, that different characteristics and different qualities make one group superior and one group inferior. Now,
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about Karens, Karens are typically white women. And that sort of racism is rooted in a more specific type of racism called white supremacy. And then when you talk about white supremacy, that's really when, hey, you know what? I'm white. I'm better than you, black people. I'm better than you, indigenous people. I'm better than you, Latinx people. I'm better than you, transgender people. I'm better than you, indigenous people, and you, Native Americans. I'm better than all you brown people in Central America. I'm better than all of you Southeastern Asians. I'm better than all y'all Africans. I'm white. I'm number one. That is white supremacy. And then when the other, I guess the other axis that comes into play with regards to a Karen, because I think Karens I think have three component parts that make them Karens. If you remember our first discussion that we had, we said, you know what? Every Karen, for the most part, comes off an assembly line. Every one of them, you know, they might have different applications, but their purpose and their functions are primarily the same. So, you know, Corner Store Caroline is really not that much different than Central Park Ann. Central Park Ann is really not that much different than Permit Patty. Permit Patty is not really that much different than Barbecue Becky. They're all sort of wrapped up. They're all sort of these white women that are wrapped up in a blanket of racism. They're wrapped in a blanket of white supremacy, and their socks that they wear to bed every night have white fragility wrapped all over them. And I think the third part of this is white fragility. We need to talk about that. And white fragility happens when, I might as well say this, white fragility happens when someone like me, that looks like me, confronts someone that looks like you about racism and injustice. And then you get, I don't know if I feel comfortable talking about this. You know, I don't want to talk about using the N-word in rap songs. Or, you know, I don't want to talk about Black Lives Matter because, you know, I don't feel comfortable about having these discussions. And the discomfort about having these discussions can come from a variety of reasons. It could be apprehension about actually having the discussion. It could be a certain level of ignorance for not being able to discuss these sort of the racism and race relations and prejudice and oppression. Or it could just be, you know what, I'm a racist and I don't want to change my ways.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was a lot. And I so agree with you. I think that this sort of idea of Karens is, they're all sort of similar in the sense that, like, they're using the mechanisms of white supremacy to push that upon people of color, Black folks, Indigenous folks.
Exactly.
And they use the weaponization in the sense that, like, they use fear and victimhood in order to push their whiteness to get that person or that idea or whatever it is away from them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, oh my gosh, yeah, my brain is just going in 100 different directions. But yep. I think that the point here is that this sort of labeling of Karens as white fragility is being used to weaponize your whiteness, because racism, like, the assumption in our society is just that white people are racist because, you know,
they're white.
The systems we built and they're white, and they're the ones with power in society. And so once we internalize that as white women, we sort of start to believe this sort of assumption that, like, we can use our whiteness to guard against the fear that we have of the other.
Correct.
So
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And Catherine, I think the other part to all of this, and again, I've mentioned some of the more notable instances of Karens that we've seen in recent memory. We've discussed Barbecue Becky and Permit Patty, Cornerstone Caroline, Central Park Ann. But let's not forget, the Karens have been going back for centuries. Let's not forget the situation with Emmett Till. Emmett Till was brutally murdered for having a conversation with a white woman. And a white woman got scared, and I think her name was Carolyn Bryant, if I'm not mistaken. And Carolyn Bryant was like, oh shit, a black man is talking to me. I can't have this. Hey, white guys, come kill this black guy for me. And it turns out that she lied about the whole shit. So the concept and idea of a white woman using her racism as a form of privilege to get what she wants at anyone else's expense, that is the literal definition of a Karen. That's the definition of a Karen, in addition to everything you so eloquently said. And you mentioned the weaponization of white womanhood. That weaponization of white womanhood is not solely exclusive to black people, and most specifically black men. That weaponization of white womanhood in the form of a Karen can be used against anybody who is not another white woman. The only situations I think a Karen, or that sort of muted powers that Karens have, where it doesn't work, is against a white man. So this is going to sound strange in a sort of superhero analogy, but let's say that Karens were Superman, or in this instance, Superwoman. The white male would be kryptonite to a Karen. And I think the reason why Karens exist is because of years and years and years of white male superiority. So as a result, and white male supremacy and sexism. So Karens come from this place of feeling marginalized, from feeling less than, from feeling, to a certain extent, oppressed by white males. So, and naturally, misery loves company. And in every instance, Karens feel good about themselves by making other people feel bad about themselves. And Karens typically have a discomfort where they're uncomfortable in their own skin, and they only feel uncomfortable when they make someone else feel uncomfortable. And it's that sort of discomfort that goes right back into one of the three component parts of a Karen, is that white fragility. Because that white fragility, if they can use their whiteness to protect themselves from having these difficult conversations about racism and systemic oppression and being prejudiced and just being a racist asshole, then you don't have to have those discussions. You can protect yourselves, and you can make other people feel like shit while you feel good about yourself, simply for making somebody else feel terrible about themselves, or pointing out something that they've done wrong, that, or at least something that the Karen, perceives that the non-Karen has done wrong.
I think you touched on something really important there, in that white men are sort of the top of the totem pole, as I shouldn't use that analogy, but the top of, I guess, the
pyramid
system, the pyramid.
Yes.
And then white women are right underneath. So white women are using that privilege to like appeal to the white man in order to protect them, because because of that victimhood that you mentioned.
Correct.
And so, yeah, so I think that that's a really important point that you brought up, and it sort of emboldens these white women because they have this like piece of oppression because of the patriarchy.
Yes.
That allows them to be victims and to appeal to the white man who is at the top in order to protect them and do all of the I guess like actual the work of being overtly racist. Meanwhile, this mechanism of white women, it's still a weapon. It's just not as obvious.
It's not as obvious. It's not as obvious. It's the weaponization of white women in the form of a Karen is a silent killer. It's a heart attack, whereas the weaponization of white men in terms of racism is a literal killer. It's a chokehold against a black man who's selling loose cigarettes. It's a knee on a man's neck when he's trying to pass a fake $20 bill. It's multiple gunshots in the back when he's trying to run away from being apprehended at a DUI stop at a Wendy's in Atlanta, Georgia. So again, take notice of what I just outlined. And take notice of what you just said, Catherine. You just said, hey, you know what? It's that appeal to a white man, because again, in the terms of the racial hierarchy, the white male is the top of the pyramid. So again, the only way white women can feel as if they have any sort of power in the form of is to Karenize themselves. And that sort of proximity to power makes Karens feel as if they actually have power. And just like and like I said a couple of seconds ago, I said that it's a silent killer. Power is always felt. It's never seen. So you don't see power, you feel the power.
Yeah. Yeah, and oh my gosh, there's so much to say about this. I think I
Fire
want
away. Go for
to
it.
provide some examples because the example of Emmett Till is like such, I mean, it's an extreme example, but an important one. But I
Correct.
think that oftentimes these big sort of examples that are so blatant can kind of erase the nuanced aspects of this like Karen, the white fragility, because like this stuff happens constantly.
I agree.
They're microaggressions oftentimes. And so like what you when you said at the start, like when someone points something out, you don't want to feel racist because oh my gosh, something that was just brought up is uncomfortable. For example, if you got called out by a coworker for commenting on their appearance. For
Hmm.
example,
Right.
many women comment on black women's hair, which is a really sensitive topic.
And
And
touch black women's
I've
hair
heard
too. And touch,
and
like,
touch, yeah,
yeah,
like
keep
yeah,
your fucking hands to yourself. The hell's your problem?
yeah, yeah,
Shit.
exactly. Oh my gosh. So my point here is that when you're called out for something, you automatically feel defensive because you're white and you don't want to be racist and you don't know why. Like maybe you don't know why this is such a sensitive topic for
Hmm.
black women.
Exactly.
So then the tears come and then you divert the conversation to, oh, I didn't mean to do
I
that.
didn't mean to do that.
Meanwhile, this
Exactly.
person is experiencing racism personally and now they're consoling you as a white woman.
Hmm.
So this is an example of how that mechanism can be sort of used in real life. Another way is tone policing. Oh, you're yelling at me. I feel attacked.
I feel
You know what I
attacked.
mean?
Exactly. Or the
Mm-hmm.
stereotype of the
Yeah.
angry black woman in the workplace. Well, why are you being so angry? Why do you roll your neck every time you feel like something's bothering you? Again and again, you
Because
said, go
they're
ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
oh, it's because that's racism. Like, of course you're going to react to that if you're
Of
being
course.
literally like having racism blatantly thrown at you. And
Hmm.
but white people don't understand how to talk about race. We've never been taught how to talk about race. So like
Yep.
your defensiveness is useless and you're diverting the conversation because you've been taught to not talk about race at any cost.
Uh-huh. And Catherine,
So all of that,
all of that. And you know what? And again, I have some notes here and there, but not a whole lot of notes. A lot of this is just, hey, just rapid fire because my brain sort of works that way. And I swear to you, you said, hey, a lot of us have never been taught how to talk about race. And this is at the bottom of my notes right there. It says racism is a learned behavior. And again, you and I don't do prep for this show or these conversations a couple days a week. We send some chats here and there, a couple of notes here and there, but it's not as if this whole situation is rehearsed. And you just said to me, hey, you know what? We've never been taught about how to talk about racism. And again, Karens learn these sorts of behaviors. No one wakes up and comes out of their mother's womb and says, I feel like being a Karen today. Or, you know what? Hey, I'm 18 years old. I just graduated from a high quality university. You know what? I feel like being a Karen for the rest of my life. No, no one does that. It's a learned behavior. And the other day I was talking with a friend of mine who had some drug and alcohol issues. And we were just talking about, going to some Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. And the friend of mine who I spoke to said that you can't ever be a recovered alcoholic because every day you have to work to not be an alcoholic. Every day you have to work to not be an alcoholic. And I thought about that in the context of racism. And I said, and I was, it was up at 2 o'clock in the morning because my sleep's been terrible recently. And I thought about this. So I was like, you know what? Can you actually be a recovered racist, like a fully recovered racist? It's like, you read enough books, you talk to enough people, you learn about racism and white supremacy and white fragility, and You learn about intersectionality and all these fancy buzzwords that seem to be the part of the lexicon that is June 2020. But can you ever truly be a fully recovered racist? Hell no, you can't, because you always are recovering. You always have to be learning about racism, because just as the alcoholist is one person away, one drink away from being an alcoholic again, is that racist is one epithet or one action or not a microaggression, because the word microaggression, again, and I've been reading this old book here, the word microaggression is a misnomer, because the word micro means that it's small, and there's nothing small about these racist activities. And an aggression, it's not an aggression, it's abuse. So microaggression, and it was created by this Harvard psychologist, and I forget the gentleman's name, but a microaggression is actually, realistically, is a misnomer. There's nothing small about being abused. A microaggression is racism. You don't need to sugarcoat it. It is what it is. It's fucking racist. And again, racism is a learned behavior. And part of the reason why we're having this discussion today is because people don't want to have these conversations about race, and people also don't know how to change their ways. They don't know how to change, because change is difficult. Change takes work. Change takes energy. Change takes effort. Change takes time. And a lot of people don't want to do that. So, Catherine, you and I are going to give a whole lot of people a whole lot of political and social education that they may not necessarily be ready for, because this is going to be some difficult shit that we're going to talk about in the next 32 minutes or so. And I hope a lot of Karens go back and say, fuck, man, Catherine was right. She really, damn. You know what? That brother Joe, shit, man, he was right about that shit. You know what? Yeah, I am a Karen. And I really got some fucking work to do. So, look, everybody that's watching and everybody that will watch, Catherine and I, we're here to help. We are here to help. So, go ahead, Catherine. I know you have something you want to say. So I'm
always, it seems, these days.
Hey, it is what it is. We're out here for the people. We are out here for the people.
Yeah, no, it's too real. I just wanted to also just mention, yeah, you're so right. It's not like I haven't been a Karen myself. Okay, this is something that comes to you when you start learning about feminism too. Because, I grew up in a pretty conservative place. Only white people. I was not exposed to, lots of diversity and whatever. So I kind of had to come to this stuff and learn about it on my own or in school. And so when you first start learning about feminism, I find a lot of people don't understand that the process that you're going through to be like, oh my gosh, I'm oppressed. It kind of emboldens you in other ways in your life, because you're like, dang, I don't want to be told or spoken to that way in the store or whatever. So you use your sort of power as a woman to assert yourself.
Correct.
Not understanding necessarily that there are other mechanisms like racism involved.
Correct.
So that's a lot of people I know that have done, or including myself, you catch yourself being a Karen because you're like, wait, I don't want to be treated that way, but then you don't realize that there's other mechanisms involved in your impacting another person by oppressing them.
Yes.
Because you're emboldened, because you're a feminist now, and it's great. And I don't say that to deter anyone from becoming a feminist. I'm very much a feminist, an intersectional feminist, and I think everyone should be one.
I agree.
But it's just an interesting thing that I've sort of anecdotally noticed within myself and a few people around me, that just because you're becoming sort of awoken to the mechanisms of how the systems of oppression work in our society doesn't absolve you from becoming or utilizing other ones within this learning space.
Correct.
If that makes sense.
It absolutely, totally makes sense. And so In other words, two wrongs don't make a right.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
two wrongs don't make a right. So just because a white guy has oppressed you doesn't give you the right to oppress somebody who's not a white male. And and again, there's this old adage that when you just because you don't need to blow out somebody's candle to make your light shine any brighter. And that's really what Karens end up doing. They'll blow out somebody else's candle so they feel bright and shiny, but realistically their spirits and souls are as dark as the hearts and their minds of their racist and prejudiced and discriminatory behaviors. And we're here to change all that. We're here to change all that. And one other thing, and I said earlier on, I was like, hey, you know what? White guys are at the top of this pyramid, and you mentioned that also. I'm here to inform everybody, and I think, Catherine, I think you'll agree, there's no such thing as a male Karen. There's not a male version of a Karen. There's no such thing as a Kevin or a Keith. It doesn't exist. And the reason why it doesn't exist is because, again, white males don't have to worry about the fragility aspect of being a white man, because white men have consistently held power. And you can't have power and have any sort of fragility at the same time in that sort of dynamic. If you have control, and white men have always had control, I mean, take it, and again, I'm going to go back to it again, because I know this is one of my favorite props. The United States Constitution, yippee, hey, here we go. And all these dudes at the bottom were white guys, and they wrote the supreme law of the land. So, hey, power. Every president that we've had in the United States has been a white guy, except Barack Obama, who is a biracial guy. And he was controlled by white people's money. So, again, white guys have always held power. So, they don't have to worry about feeling threatened by anybody else because they have the power to eliminate the threat. Whereas white women have been subjugated by white men, and they don't necessarily have the levers of power to deal with their fragility. So their weaponization, their best way to deal with their fragility is to weaponize it against somebody else, because they don't want to feel oppressed, but they want to make sure other people feel oppressed.
Yeah, for sure. That's so true.
Yep. So I know you and I, we talked about this a half an hour ago. We're both rather academic. We like school. We like our books. We don't necessarily like all the 30-page papers and that come with it, but getting a master's degree feels good. It feels good to walk across the stage and hear your name called. And the more you learn about all these different theories, I know your background is sociology. I got a nonprofit background and a communications, healthcare sort of background. You learn about all these different theories, and you wonder, who are these people? Why do they think of these theories? Why are they in books? They must have had something that actually made sense. And in one of the classes, actually in a couple of different classes at both graduate schools, I learned about Kurt Lewin's theory of change. Now, Kurt Lewin was a German-American psychologist, and he really pioneered a lot of the fields in applied psychology and especially social psychology. And Kurt Lewin is also known for his field theory of behavior. And where in that field theory of behavior, he talks about it and says that human behavior is a function of a person's actions within their environment, within their psychological environment. So I'm going to make sure I say that again. Human behavior is a function of a person's psychological environment. So if where you are is your environment and you constantly get mental notes put into your mind, that becomes the way your behavior gets patterned. These neural synapses in the brain create new neural connections that not only influence the way you communicate, but it also influences the way you behave. And that goes back a month ago to our first discussion when we talked about Karens in the beginning. I said, you know what? A Karen basically comes from a factory. They're all kind of made the same. They all kind of go to the same schools. They all belong to the same social groups. They all participate in the same social activities. They all seem to date the same type of white guy. They all seem to have similar family backgrounds, and then their families have similar backgrounds, and so on and so forth. And that sort of human behavior is an institutionalization that continues to create this factory of Karens over and over and over and over again. And then I said in that discussion, I said, you know what, look, we can't just fix one Karen and expect to end all Karens. No, we have to systematically dismantle the factories that make Karens. So I thought about using another one of Kurt Lewin's behavioral theories or social theories called the three-step model for change, where it has three parts: freezing, movement, and refreezing. And you see this used a lot in businesses. And I thought about this. I'm like, well, wait a minute. If Karens comes from factories, which aren't businesses, and this theory is used for change within a business, why can't we apply this to change Karens? So that's what we're going to do today.
Yeah, that's amazing. There was so much in that, and I totally agree that the mechanisms behind all of this are these subtle indications that uphold all of this, like the systemic racism that we keep talking about over and over.
Yes.
And we keep saying we want to dismantle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is an entire lifetime, everyone's entire lifetime of learned things about the world that basically uphold whiteness and white supremacy, and everything else is below that.
Correct.
So when we're looking at using a theory, I think it's helpful to sort of break it down into like these three steps, like you outlined, and plug in sort of what the steps mean in a real life situation. So
Correct.
When we talk about this theory of change by Kurt Lewin, what is an example of what unfreezing? Do you think that the Black Lives Matter movement gaining momentum right now is the process of unfreezing?
That's a perfect segue to what I was just going to talk about next, because unfreezing, there are each part of those three major parts has different pieces to it. And we can talk about the different pieces in the context of Karens. So unfreezing essentially means we have to create the perception that we need to make a change. So yeah, we need to get rid of Karens. So the first part of unfreezing is recognizing the need for change. And that what you just said is exactly the real life part of the application of the theory. You know what? Yeah, Black Lives Matter. That's certainly a recognizing the need to make a change. You know what? Yeah, because it's obvious that what's happening right now is not right. It's been wrong for centuries, and it needs to change. Now, the next part is determining what needs to change in terms of unfreezing. What do we need to change? We need to change the way white women weaponize their whiteness against everybody else that is not a white man. That's what needs to change. Now, the third part of that is encouraging the replacement of old behaviors and attributes with new behaviors. That is actually going to be that is the beginning of where the work for not just white women, but quite honestly everybody, but specifically in the context of Karens begins. Because if for all of your life, and Kurt Lewin told us that human behavior is a function of a person's psychological environment. If all your life, all you've known is that black men are a threat to white people, especially white women, and that's all you've known for 29 years of your life, or 33 years of your life, or 36 years of your life, or 48 years of your life, how do you change your behavior to the point where you no longer perceive a black person, specifically a black man, as being a threat?
You learn.
I don't have to.
You gotta do it yourself. You learn.
How do you learn?
And unlearn. Well, I think that it's something you have to pursue yourself, in the sense that there are loads and loads of resources on the internet. And I think that this time in particular has amplified the fact that there are so many resources on the internet. Like,
Mhm.
use it to your advantage. You need to be not only reading the stuff that people are posting and is widely available on both of our pages, but you also need to be reflecting upon that within your own life. And that's the only way that you can do that. You know, like, if you realize that you've been a Karen before, like, fine, whatever, that's happened. Like, I hope no one got hurt, but don't do it again. And you know how you're not going to do that again? By learning about the history, by learning about how your internalized whiteness is used as a weapon, by listening to talks like this, by having conversations with people.
I
I feel
agree.
like I veered off a little bit,
No,
but
no, no. You didn't. You didn't. You didn't veer off. You didn't veer off. And earlier on, I mentioned. I said, you know what? Hey, when I talked about, can you ever become a reformed Karen? I said, you know what? There's 12 steps to dealing with alcoholism, and I just looked up the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, and the first step, and I'm waiting for my internet is horribly slow. The first step is
that's
admitting that we are powerless over alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable. Essentially, admitting that you have a problem. And then we take a look at the unfreezing model, the unfreezing part of the 12-step, of the three-step model. And hey, recognizing there's a need for change. That sounds kind of similar. And the fourth part, and it just dovetails with the discussion about Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 steps, but not too deep into it, but everything that you just talked about a second ago and how it relates to the fourth step of unfreezing is gather support. It says there right there in the notes, gather support. So part of what you said, Catherine, is, hey, you know what? Sometimes you just got to do it yourself. But you know, there's other resources that are available. There's stuff that's on your page, stuff that's on my page, stuff that's on a lot of pages. There's books you can read, like this one. There's stuff on YouTube. There are probably, and again, Karens tend to congregate in certain social groups. And you know what? If you don't want to be a Karen, don't hang around other Karens. Find some new people to hang around. Find some different people to hang around that don't share Karen beliefs. And preferably find some people who don't look like you and don't come from your community and don't come from your similar socioeconomic status as you. Because it's then and only then that you will be able to de-Karenize yourself. But you can't actually de-Karenize yourself because you constantly have to work to not being a Karen. It's similar to not being a racist. You have to be an anti-racist. It's that sort of consistent daily work. So gather support. Go find groups of people who can talk to you about racism and prejudice and systemic and whiteness and blackness. Talk to people. Get the help that you need. And sometimes there are people out here who can't help themselves. So they need help from external sources. Talk to a professor at a university. Listen to a couple of talks, TED Talks on YouTube. If you go to church, talk to your pastor. If there's a church group that wants to have discussions about racism every Tuesday night or Tuesday afternoon at 3:30 or Tuesday night at 7:30, go to it. Because again, that sort of support, the same sort of support that made you a Karen is the same sort of support that'll help you to get rid of that Karen vibe or that Karen genes that are in you.
yeah, and I've said it before a bunch of times, like, my page is open and accessible
Wide open.
for other white people to talk to me about this stuff, because sometimes it's hard to talk to your black friends or your black family members, nor should you be using those people as resources for your learning,
I agree.
because that can be traumatic. So having conversations like this, that's what it's all about. Reach out to me if you're embarrassed. that's fine. I'm a white person. I've been through it all. I'm still learning. We can do it together. And stop being a friggin' Karen.
And in addition to stop being a Karen, stop being scared to ask for help if you don't think you can do it on
Yeah.
your own. Because that's why
Yeah. Good
gathering
call.
support is so important. Because again, similar to an alcoholic, there are some alcoholics out here and drug abusers that are like, oh shit, you know what? I can't do this on my own. I need help. And the biggest step in their lives is taking that first step. I think it was Lao
Mm-hmm.
Tzu or Confucius that once said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And
Mm-hmm.
that single step is saying, you know what, shit, I need to not be a Karen. You know what, I need to not be a fucking racist. Let me get some help.
Mm-hmm.
I need to not, because my life sucks right now, and I don't like this. More importantly, I don't like seeing other people's lives suck. The last part of unfreezing is managing doubts and concerns.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be some days where you're just like, you know what? Can I do this? Can I not be a Karen? Can I not be a racist? This is all I've ever known. My parents taught me to be prejudiced. My mother taught me that whenever I see a black person, to hold my purse a bit tighter, or roll up the window, or
Mm-hmm.
or or be overly aggressive and loud and lie on them if they're just being themselves. I was taught that sort of behavior. How can I change it? Can I do it? Yeah, if you're committed to doing it. It's no different than being committed to diversity or committed to being inclusive in a workplace. It's no different than being committed to an exercise regimen so you can lose weight and be healthier. It's no different than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mind sharing this. For many of you that don't know me, 11 years ago when I first got married, I used to be 100 pounds heavier than I am now. I was a fat guy. I have no problem talking about that. And there were plenty of days that I didn't feel like getting up out of bed and exercising. But you know what? I did it. There were plenty of days where I was like, shit, am I ever going to lose this weight? Am I ever going to do it? And I didn't have a support system. It was me. I just happen to have thicker skin. My skin's probably as thick as a dictionary, I guess, at this point. But I knew that I had to do it because my life sucked. I didn't like being a fat guy. I didn't like wearing triple extra large t-shirts and they were still tight on me. And it's no different than a Karen saying, you know what, fuck, I don't want to be a racist. I don't want to hate black people all the damn
Mm-hmm.
time. I got to change.
Mm-hmm.
But there are days that you're going to be like, shit, I don't know if I can do this. Do it anyway. Winston Churchill once said, if you're going through hell, keep going. Because this shit is not going to be easy to try to unlearn all this fucked up behavior that you've been learning all of your lives. Not just in your life, but in your parents' lives, in your teachers' lives, in your professors' lives, in your boss's lives at work, and in your friends' lives, and all those Facebook groups that you're a part of. Change the shit. If you gotta struggle through it, struggle through it. Because damn it, black people have been struggling for over 400 years and we're still standing. So if we can struggle through this shit for over 400 years, you can struggle in it for a few months, or a year, or two,
Exactly.
or the rest of your damn life.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. This work never stops, and I think that that's an important point because yeah, it can be hard. Yeah, you will want to, you'll want to quit. You'll want to do anything but sometimes. But like on those days, just put on a YouTube video. Just put on a Netflix documentary that's on the resource list. You can do the easier ones on those days when you don't feel like it, and then you're still learning something and figuring it out. And then if you're watching stuff like that, you can think about it and internalize that and recognize it in yourself, and that's how change works.
Correct. Exactly how change works. Now, the second part of Kurt Lewin's three-step change model is movement. And it's so ironic that I talked about weight loss because the best way to lose weight is to move your body. It's to move your body. It's to get off your ass and do something, whatever it is. And then, just like you said so eloquently, Catherine, is there are some days where you just don't feel like doing the hard work. And on those days, you'll watch a documentary or watch a YouTube video. It's similar to exercise. There are some days where you won't want to swing a kettlebell or do 1,000 reps of jump rope or run 2 miles or lift all these weights. There are some days where you just don't have that sort of juice in you to do it. And those are the days where you just stretch for 45 minutes, where you do some yoga, or you do some mindful meditation.
Go for a nice long walk.
Or you go for a
leisurely.
nice long walk in the woods. You go for a hike.
Yeah.
And you hang out on a waterfall. And you jump in.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
That sounds lovely.
It's yeah, it does. It does. So the first part of the movement piece of the three-step change model is implementing change by taking specific action. I don't think there's much needs to be said about that. You have to get up and actually do the work. You have to recognize the situations where your Karenness is a part of your daily life, and you have to not only study and learn how not to be a Karen, but you also have to learn all of the reasons why Karens become Karens, all of the behaviors and characteristics that makes you a Karen, and then how to not weaponize your Karenness against other people, and and how to not weaponize those. Sometimes the best specific action is minding your own damn business. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the best action is leaving black people alone if you're a Karen. Mm-hmm. So you know what? If that little black girl wants to sell bottled waters on the street, fuck it. Let her sell them on the street. If this group of brothers and sisters wants to have a barbecue at Lake Merritt and they want to barbecue all the stuff they want to cook up, Becky, leave them the fuck alone. Leave them alone. You know, if a dude from Harvard with a bicycle helmet wants to watch birds in Central Park, let him watch the fucking birds in Central Park. Leave his ass alone. Sometimes the best specific action is just leaving black people alone and letting us live. Mm-hmm. Let us do what we want. Because you know what? We don't do that shit to you.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh. And I think another important part of this is once you've done the first part of like learning about this stuff, mm-hmm. you can start to recognize it in yourself. And like, excuse me, when you're out in the world.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
When you're out in the world, once you understand how this comes about and how it presents in yourself, mm-hmm. by knowing that stuff, you can start to recognize it and you can go, wait, like I see something and it's bringing up an emotion in me, and examine it before you act.
Correct.
And I think that is what you're saying is like, okay, maybe somebody is doing something that they shouldn't be doing in your mind. Why are they doing it? Ask yourself these questions before you call the cops on a person because they're black in a park or parked in a parking lot. Like you need to understand that people live their lives, and you can't just use your whiteness to like uphold these bullshit laws that are literally created for your comfort as a white person.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And no one else's comfort.
And no one else's comfort. You know? So take specific action. And sometimes mm-hmm. the best action is not doing shit. Sometimes it really is.
Yes, exactly.
And the next part of movement is helping others to learn a new concept or a point of view. Mm. In addition to that, it's also, when you're a Karen, it's everything you just said. It's also, hey, you know what? Shit. I'm recognizing what I could be doing. What I could do is harmful to that other person. Let me put myself in that other person's shoes and see how that would feel. Last week, Catherine, you and I talked about intersectionality, and I remember saying in one of our discussions, I said, you know what, intersectionality begins when people see their problems through another person's eyes. And it's that sort of concept of seeing another point of view in that level, with that level of depth, not just looking at it and saying, fuck it, I'll still call the cops anyway, because he's black, whatever. He'll be okay. He won't get shot. That's not good enough. It's, hey, you know what? Shit. I got to really dive deep into this. And it's that sort of work that's involved. Help others see that. In addition to helping others, you got to help yourself. The third part of movement is finding experts and mentors to facilitate training. Basically, finding people that know more shit than you about this so you can change. Because no one knows everything, but I know there's a whole lot of people out here that know more than know about this than you. And that's why we started this conversation today, because we're here to help. We want to make sure that people understand what the hell's going on. And shit, I'm not saying I'm an expert, and I'm not saying you're an expert. But I certainly think, given the response that we've had to all of the videos that we've done in the past, people are paying attention. People are fucking listening. And they're like, shit, you know what? I'm going to watch these Joe and Kat chats every Tuesday. And if I can't watch it live, I'm going to watch the replay. And because I'm learning some shit. That's good. We're learning.
Yeah, and I think that a really important aspect of this is just that, you know, we're just regular people, and we've been learning about this stuff ourselves, and we're still learning about it ourselves. So, like, reach out. Seriously, reach out. And the other thing I want to say about finding mentors is I'm here as a resource as like for white people to go through the bullshit with me instead of accessing and traumatizing your black friends and family. But learn from black folks. These people, so many people have been providing such rich and wonderful information for so many years about this stuff. Like, don't just learn from other white people, because that's part of the problem. And I want to bring up this book right here, which is something that everyone should read. I'm only about halfway through it, but my goodness, this is, if you're already a Karen, it probably means you like have been emboldened in some way onto feminist thought and realize that you know, the patriarchy is a bad thing. Read this book, please.
Feminist Black Thought. Who is Feminist Black Thought by, Kathy?
It is by Patricia Hill Collins.
I'm putting that in the chat. Feminist Black Thought by Patricia, Patricia Collins. Done. It's in the chat.
You got it.
It's in the chat.
That one's a bit academic, just
Not
as
a
an
problem.
FYI.
Not a problem.
But
sometimes some of this stuff's going to be dense to
over.
read.
Exactly. This one, not so academic, but life-changing.
And that is
this
Outside.
Is another black
Sister
author.
Outside?
Sister Outsider.
Outsider.
By Audre Lorde.
Outsider by AudreYLorde. Okay. Wonderful.
You got it.
All right. Awesome. Let me get to the third part, because we got about 6.5, maybe 7 minutes left.
I know. I'm sorry. I had to interject.
No. It's good, because we're going to put those books in the chat, because when people look at the chat, the books will pop up. So the titles and authors are there. So that way people are like, oh, shit, what did she say? We don't have to worry about that. We got you. Like I said, we're here to help. We told you that.
Yes.
Told you that. We told you that. We're not messing about. So the third part is to refreeze. Now, there's 4 parts to this, and we'll kind of go over these quickly because we're challenged for time. First part is to make sure that changes are reinforced and stabilized. Make sure that, we consistently do the work involved to not be a Karen. Don't do it. So when you realize that you've made these changes, make sure these changes keep going. Reinforce them. Not only externally, but internally. Keep yourself accountable. The next part is to integrate the changes into the normal way of doing things. So essentially, make sure that you becoming less of a Karen or working on not being a Karen is your new way of life, your new normal. Make sure it's your new normal. The third part is to develop ways to sustain the change. How can I keep going? How can I keep not being a Karen? A great way to do that is, again, when we talked about in the movement part, finding support. Maybe a great way to develop the change is to have a support group. Maybe you have a group of white women that just meet 1 or 2 days a week, whether it's on a Zoom chat, because we all got to be socially distant these days, or maybe it's a group of white women that have a Facebook group, or maybe it's a group of white women that meet at a church, or you meet up at a Starbucks, or you meet up at a Panera Bread, or you're in Canada, so it's going to be a Tim Hortons, all right? But you meet up and you talk about this stuff. You get a couple of coffees. You get a box of Timbits, and you talk it out. You talk it out. You say, hey, you know what? I'm a Karen and I need help, and I'm working on this. How can I keep this going? Because again, if you work in a group and you have other people who are trying to not be Karens, they're going to be able to support you because they're going through the same problems, the same struggles you're going through. It stands to reason why, in terms of weight loss, you have all these weight loss groups, like Weight Watchers. Okay? You have them. It's why people go to gyms. Because when you go to a gym, you have other people that are an example of what physical fitness and health looks like. And you're like, shit, if they can do it, I can do it. If they can do it, I can do it. And if I can lose this weight, and I'm in a group setting, and I can not be a Karen, and I'm also in a group setting. So find people that'll help you. And the last part, and this kind of goes with the last piece I talked about, is celebrate the successes and keep practicing the new behaviors. Hey, you know what? Hey, I'm not a Karen. I'm not a Karen. And sometimes the celebration of that success could be you not risking somebody else's life.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. I was just going to say, don't expect a cookie if you're a white person and you're doing this anti-racist work and moving into this space of anti-racist work. You're not going to get a cookie. This is thankless work, nor should it be. But if you can be proud of yourself for recognizing it and not pursuing your default of being a Karen and being annoyed at a black person existing in the world, like, yeah, that's great. Celebrate that. Treat yourself to,
a cookie.
Making a new friend with a black person.
Yes.
Or a cookie.
Or a cookie.
In your own life.
Exactly. Exactly. Or make a new friend with a black person and cook with them. How about that?
Yes.
Learn about black people's culture. All right? And it's more than just all this racist stereotypes and tropes that people seem to throw about. Learn about that. And you know what? In black people, hey, if a white person says, hey, you know what, I want to have dinner with you, I want to cook with you, do it. Go for it.
Yes.
Go for it.
Yes.
Because there's Go ahead.
Food is the great equalizer, my goodness. Food is what brings us together utterly.
There's
Always.
two things that bring people together all the time. All the time. It's food and music. It's food and music.
Yes.
It's food and music. That's why there's all these black people that have cookouts all the time. We have cookouts. Why? Because it's food and music. It's food and music. That's why white folks have barbecues. Why? Because it's food and music. And food and music bring everybody together. They bring everybody together.
Yes.
I know we got about 90 seconds left because I'm watching the time.
We do.
Yeah. It's that whole DJ time thing. It's that whole DJ clock thing. It's like, okay.
You got it.
Running out of time now. Running out of time. So first of all, I love you forever. You're awesome. Thank you for this. You're beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you for continuing this work with me. And it's just always inspiring to speak with you, Joe.
Hey, I'm here. I'm here for you, and I'm here for people. I'm here for everybody. I'm here for humanity. Now, I know we got about 60 seconds left. Next week, what are we talking about?
Next week, we're going to tackle some healthcare stuff.
Oh, boy. Now we're talking.
This is, we're going to do it.
That's my wheelhouse.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
Yeah, that's your wheelhouse. I'm gonna brush up on my Canadian healthcare stuff, and we're gonna draw everything into what's going on with racist healthcare.
Absolutely, it's medical apartheid. Legit. It's a real deal, and we're gonna talk about that Affordable Care Act and why it's neither affordable nor does it actually care for people. So we're gonna dive deep.
Yeah, for sure.
We're gonna dive deep.
Yes.
So get your scuba trunks and your scuba gear.
Yeah.
We're diving deep.
And throw away that cell phone that you used to call the cops.
Toss it. Get it out of here.
Because get out of here, Karens.
Bye. Goodbye.
Oh, my goodness.
All right. You got to go.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we do.
Word up.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
You take care of yourself. Bye.
Will do. Okay.